spirit. The power comes from the fact that your spirit then rises up in its force and its ability to interface with your life. You find yourself using your spiritual awareness of things more and more, your spiritual abilities to observe, and you draw off of your maximum wisdom available. Okay? The last thing I want to talk about as far as the philosophy here, and then we'll go through some meditative exercises, is what Billy calls the clarity of knowledge. Through the clarity of knowledge and meditation, the individual now enters the realm of teaching himself. This means that the meditative exercise can be introduced into the daily life so that you can use your new ability to see things clearly in conjunction with the daily process of actions of words and deeds. And we've talked about that already, how we can become a balanced individual where we don't see things as negative or positive. We see things from a more balanced viewpoint, a neutral viewpoint by virtue of our keen observation. We are beginning to balance out ourselves, so we are living our life as a material person, but we're also using our spirit. You can begin to teach yourself new ways to react in the material world through these new knowledges you're learning about through your spirit. You will keep the meditative exercise kind of always ready. It's always kind of on call and on hand, so you can call upon it anytime you want to facilitate yourself during the daily life. Remember the pause? If you want to have some fun the next few days, just teach yourself to pause. Like every hour on the hour, pause for 20 seconds and observe exactly what's going on around you. Just observe. When you observe, don't make any judgments or any opinions. Just observe things, Spock-like, see things like a microscope exactly as they are. Okay? Through extremely clear knowledge, brought on by pure observation, there's a slow breakdown in the delusion of ego. You'll see the world a lot clearer. You begin to create a new way of thinking which uses your wisdom. Final thought here, the meditation method has 3 basic steps to it. And the first steps is finding applications for yourself. The meditative exercises are primarily for yourself, one, to develop the knowledge and so forth of your spirit, to learn to use the force of your spirit, to learn through the meditative exercise how to observe things clearly. But those are all things about the self, right? They're all me, I. The second thing you need to do is spread out at a later date after you've accomplished those levels of understanding, and spread out and start applying these principles to other people. Observe other people and how they react, and learn to observe other things without your own influences, without your own ideas, to be an observer of the outside world, okay? And finally, you find applications where both are involved, where you see applications where you personally are interfacing with the outside world, and you observe that. The reason is that this 3-part rhythm is so important because all partialities, imperfections, dangers of exclusive introversion or extroversion of the consciousness will be avoided. So we want to be careful of turning our conscious thoughts inward or outward on purpose. By that I mean it's possible that you can create what's called euphoric meditation. And the 3-part meditative exercise is kind of like a checklist, and that helps you avoid that. Euphoric meditation is it's a process that you can fall into causing illusions, can be dangerous to yourself. For instance, if you engage in pure introversion, turning inward, purely inward, you will have what are called euphoric hallucinations. They appear. They build themselves up and become illusions, and then you begin to lose the sense of reality. You can no longer make a free decision then when that happens. Your introversion will be connected with desires and pleasures, and you create like a mania, and you lose reality. This is what people do when they channel, unfortunately. See, refer back again to our little drawing of the material side and the spiritual side, and what I told you earlier. What channeling is when a person begins to meditate, and they allow their ego to become involved, and without even being aware of it, their psyche, which contains their feelings and thinkings and so forth, then produces an hallucination, and they're not even aware where this is coming from. Out of this, because of their ego, which can be subconscious desires to be liked, wanted, or whatever, the meditation never gets deep enough, immerses deep enough, and becomes clear enough where it gets into the spirit. It never gets to the spiritual self. The meditation strictly is called euphoric because it goes straight into your material side only, and your material side will then, your subconscious along with your psyche, will create an hallucination. You don't know where it's from. Because you're so anxious for something like this to happen, the individual goes along with it and immediately says, wow, this is terrific. You know, I'm in touch with something. Must be a higher self. Must have been a great king from Egypt. Surely it was probably me in a former life. And pretty soon we have someone channeling. Channeling is total fake. It is the development of the self. And it is a path you go on where you are steered improperly in meditation. The correct way to get in touch with other beings is, as we talked about earlier, is to use the meditation to properly become immersed in a meditative immersion, getting in touch with your spiritual self, and using spiritual telepathy to do that, the we form. Then there's no trance needed. There's no hallucination. There's no voices coming out claiming that it's the King Farouk or whatever. And then there's no danger of us, losing touch with our reality. I've seen many people who have learned to channel and do things have come to these realizations on their own, that it's a dangerous path we tread on when we start to meditate if we do not understand the proper principles of the mind and how the spirit works. That's why I went to some trouble of explaining this, because I'd feel very sad if some of you went out and began to meditate without understanding the mechanics really of how mind and spirit work, and you were misled and started creating your own illusions or delusions of yourself. True meditation is pure observation without desire. Desire is what gets into our material side and causes our meditation to become euphoric. Meditation that's guided by our own desires then creates these illusions. It is the purest means of true recognition and does not contain any matters which are based on wish fulfillments or hallucinations. That's what true meditation actually is. True meditation is founded on pure truth, pure knowledge, pure recognition, pure observation, and clear sight, clearly seeing what it is and letting it speak to you without influence of your desires. All right, I think we're ready to discuss a couple of things. One, a meditative exercise on how we can begin to develop our meditative technique, and then we'll also discuss a little bit an actual meditative immersion technique that Billy uses and teaches to his own group members. For the use of for our meditative exercise, we're going to use a very common method used by many different forms of meditation, which is the idea of concentrating on our own respiration, or our own breath. This is a very simple way to do it, and it's also a very good way to do it because the respiration is a part of the life form and is a very important factor. And by concentrating on your own breath, you immediately become aware of the transience of your own life. There's an immediate feeling of kind of calm and security and well-being when you do that. So I'm going to explain exactly how that works and how you can do it. In order to concentrate on your breathing, which is a very simple method of initial concentration, using the lotus method of sitting with your legs crossed is a very popular way of doing that. However, that's for people that are used to doing that. I know here in the Western world, most people aren't used to sitting in that position, and it's very uncomfortable for them, so the exercise really wouldn't be possible. So if you need to, you might be able to just sit in a chair or get into a relaxed state somewhere, any position where it's quiet. Get rid of any extraneous clothing, jewelry, hats, or whatever you may have on that may draw your attention to them or make noise. Okay? And what we'll do is we'll begin now. Let's say we're going to do this sitting in a chair, a very comfortable chair with your arms down on the sides of each chair. And we're now going to take 3 deep breaths. And when we take each breath, we do this very slowly. We pull the breath in, and then we hold it, and very slowly let it out. Let it out all the way so your lungs are completely exhausted of air. And then repeat that again. Do that 3 times. This will begin to relax the body right away. Simple breathing thing you can do any time of the day if you feel any kind of stress at all. Just stop and take 3 deep breaths and you'll immediately feel a little bit better. Okay, now what we're going to do though is we're going to concentrate on the breath as it goes in and out of our nasal passages, because it's doing that all of the time. This is part, like I say, of our life force, and it's a very good thing to concentrate on. So to begin with, after taking your 3 breaths, let's now begin to concentrate on the breath moving in and out of the nasal passages. As you start to do that, you'll notice right away that it's kind of a cooling sensation, that once you start paying attention to the breath going in and out, that suddenly you notice it's kind of cool, and that it actually flows in right along the sides of your nose, right in the middle, and that it moves up the side of your nose and disappears up into the top of your nose back into your body. Don't follow it any farther than that. We only want to observe the breath just as it flows in the beginning stages when it hits the nasal side of the nasal wall, the middle section when it rolls up the side of the nasal wall, and the end of the breath as it disappears back into the body. Okay, remember, do not follow it any farther than that. When you first start doing this, for most people, the first thing that will happen is that you'll find yourself immediately getting involved in your breath control, and your breath speeds up or your body jerks a little something. It's perfectly normal. It takes a little practice to get used to the idea of observing your breath. And by observing, I mean not taking part in it. We're just going to observe your breath going in and out of your nose, and we're going to literally concentrate just on that observation and not take any part of it. Now remember, this is just an exercise for practice. It'll take some time. You don't want to cheat, no point in that, and don't force it. It takes a while for this to start happening. After a while, what we're working on is to be able to concentrate just on our breath and to push out any other kinds of thoughts at all that may come into our mind and hold them out. And be able to concentrate on our breath, say, for maybe 10 minutes. In order to do that, you're going to find it more difficult than you think, because it's very hard to keep thoughts out. It's also very hard to actually develop the concentration observation of the breath. Remember what we talked about in observation. We're going to observe it and not get involved in it. We're an observer of the breath. So you can almost see yourself like inside of your nose just watching the breath roll in and out. There are 3 stages to your breath: the beginning, middle, and end. The beginning as the breath actually enters the nasal passage, the middle as it sweeps up the side of your nasal passage, and the end when it actually disappears off into your body. As you continue to observe, you will notice that there are 3 clear stages. You very clearly will begin to observe the beginning stage, then the middle stage, and then the ending stage. And after concentration becomes even better, you'll start to notice the beginning and end of each stage. You'll catch the breath just as it comes in, and you'll catch the ending of the beginning stage. And then you notice the beginning of the middle stage, where the air actually goes right up the side of the nasal passage. And then you'll observe the ending of this middle phase as the breath moves up the side of your nasal passage. And then you'll begin to notice the beginning of the final stage of your breath as it begins to move into your body. And then you'll notice the ending of that stage as the breath actually moves into the body. Continued concentration on this will begin to even these 3 stages out, where the 3 stages then will be about the same amount of time and duration, and will have about the same amount of observation attached to them. And this is what we're working on. We want to get to the point where the 3 stages of the breathing become even and get rid of all of the unrest of the body. You will no longer have awareness of the body. Some people start doing this and it'll come so easy to them that 10, 15, 20 minutes will slide right by and they don't really even notice it. But the most important thing is to be able to observe without getting involved, without controlling our breath. Observe the stages of the breath going in and out, and observe, if you want to, just your feelings a little bit, how calm you feel. You'll notice that the first time you try it. It's a great way to relax if you're stressed, like on the freeway in traffic. Just for a second, just start noticing your breathing, and you'll notice how quickly you can actually calm down and become less stressful. When you get very good at this, your concentration will develop to the point where for several minutes no unwanted thoughts come in. You have no thoughts whatsoever. All you're doing is observing the breath. At that particular point, when you get deeper immersed into this exercise, you'll see that, we have our eyes closed, by the way, if possible here, if you want to try this. It's easier that way. Don't do that on the freeway, though. What will happen is when you get deeper immersed in this, kind of a bright spot or a sohar of light will begin to appear in your eyes. This is like a light of enlightenment, and this is indicative of the fact that you are beginning to sense the spiritual plane. if other images appear like visions or ideas, then this is not a success. This is self-suggestion, and this is the beginning of euphoric meditation that we want to watch out for. So if other images